rendering the results unto the Supreme God is not affected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. Text 11. Kayena manasa buddhya kevalai indriyayapi yogina karma kurvanti sangam tyaktvatma shuddhaye. The yogis, abandoning attachment, act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. 6:12. Yukta karma phalang tyaktva shantim apnoti naishtikim ayukta kamakarena phale sakto nibadhyate. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukhang vashi navadvare pure dehi naiva karvang nakarayan. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. 6:14. Na kartritvang na karmani lokasya srijyati prabhu na karma phala sangyogam svabhavastu pravartate. The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. 15. Nadate kasyachit papang nachaiva sukritang vibhuhu agyanena vritang gyanam tena muhyanti jantavaha. Nor does the Supreme Spirit assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. 6:16. Jnanena tu tad ajnanam yeshang nashitam atmanah teshang aditya vyajnanam prakashajyati tatparam. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. 17. Tadbhudayas tad atmanas tannishtas tad parayanah gachantya punar avrittim jnana nirdhuta kalmashah. When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, and one becomes fully cleansed of all misgivings through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. 6:18. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini shuni chaiva swapakecha pandita sammadarshinaha. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, outcast. So back to text 7 and 8. 8 and 9. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, moving, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, opening, or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. Purport. A person in Krishna consciousness is pure in his existence, and consequently he has nothing to do with any work which depends on 5 immediate or remote causes: the doer, the work, the situation, the endeavor, and fortune. This is because he is engaged in the loving transcendental service of Krishna. Although he appears to be acting with his body and senses, he is always conscious of his actual position, which is spiritual engagement. In material consciousness, the senses are engaged in sense gratification. But in Krishna consciousness, the senses are engaged in the satisfaction of Krishna's senses. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is always free, even though he appears to be engaged in things of the senses. Activities such as seeing, hearing, speaking, evacuating, etc. are actions of the senses meant for work. A Krishna conscious person is never affected by the actions of the senses. He cannot perform any act except in the service of the Lord, because he knows that he is the eternal servitor of the Lord. So generally, the senses in this world, our experiences, they're used to engage with the object of the senses for some particular result, some fruit that we hope to enjoy. It's just a hope, because we don't actually get to really enjoy it, as it doesn't ever meet our actual expectation. So the senses, that's our experience of it. So Arjuna initially thought, well, spirituality, based on what Krishna is saying previously, means to stop the actions of the senses, because we don't want any fruits. We don't want to enjoy any fruit. So what's the point of work? What's the point of engaging the senses with the sense objects? But Krishna, in this chapter, is revealing, he's combining both. But there's those who work with their senses for the supreme karma yoga. They don't take any much knowledge at all. They don't know who is the supreme, exactly, that it's Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead. But they know that they should work for some absolute truth, whether it be some impersonal, as the Paramatma, or maybe they have a little bit idea of some supreme personality of Godhead, but not in full knowledge. But as one takes knowledge, Jnana Yoga, understands Krishna in truth, it's not that one stops working, but one continues to work, but with proper understanding that everything is meant ultimately for Krishna. So in this sense, his senses are no longer acting in the same way as what we find in this world conditioned souls doing, which they use their senses simply for sense gratification. So devotee doesn't cease to act, but he acts for Krishna. And this is a big difference than how everyone else in this material world are acting. They're simply engaged in the senses for temporary gratification. But we will see as we progress in the verses that a real yogi, he may continue to act with body, mind, intelligence, but only for the sake of purification, or becoming. Purification means becoming more and more attached to Krishna. So Krishna always has to be the picture if we want to clearly understand the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, Prabhupada immediately in the purport brings him in, that it's for Krishna that we're acting, the person. So, since Maharaj may have a comment.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Maharaj has a comment on Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, text 18. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater, outcast.
So this is the symptom of a person on a high transcendental platform, is that he can be friendly with everyone because he tries to see the similarities between them, things that they agree on, or the things that they are the same on. Whereas a person, material conscious, he sees differences, and therefore they get into a lot of wars, because one group is living in a different place than this place, and he identifies himself according to the bodily groupings. But a transcendentalist sees everyone as his relative. He doesn't see one group as his friends and one group as his enemies. In fact, on the first class platform, he sees all living entities not only as being on the same level as himself, but being great devotees. Somehow or other, he is so fortunate and so humble that he sees all living entities as serving God or Krishna better than himself. He thinks he's the only one that's not serving. And that makes him the Uttama Adhikari. But even the Madhyama Adhikari, the middle class devotee, although he makes distinctions, his distinctions are made on the platform of spiritual realization. But he realizes they're all the same quality of living entities. All the jivas are of one type, although they may have different bodies. Thank you.
Jai. Thank you, Maharaj. Just reminded me of something in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Maharaj was bringing up the point of Uttama Adhikari, the vision. Of course, Uttama Adhikari generally comes down from this platform to make distinctions. But there are some who are in that platform and they don't come down from that platform. But generally speaking, when the pure devotees come to this world, they come for a specific purpose, for a specific lila of the Lord, or to help in some way the mission of the Lord, to attract the fallen conditions. So generally they are not absorbed in that platform. This is, you're not even conscious of how this world, you're thinking you're in the spiritual world in this sense. And this is how we see this illustrated with the intense separation that the devotee feel when Krishna disappears from the Rasa Leela. That they start thinking that everyone around them must be serving Krishna, but they're so fallen. But this is a symptom of intense separation and absorption in Krishna's pastimes, so much so that you're thinking you're in the spiritual world. So just wanted to add that point, because we shouldn't imitate this platform and think everyone is a devotee when we're not actually absorbed in Krishna's eternal leelas. We should see distinction for the sake of working for the mission of the Lord in this world. This is our position. But we can glorify those devotees who are completely absorbed in that platform and saying, wow, that they don't even know that they're in the material world. They're seeing everyone is a servant of Krishna except for me, due to the intense agony of separation from Krishna. So this is a very specific realization in the specific trance that a devotee is experiencing on that level. And it's a very, very high level. So let's continue reading. So text 10. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme God, is not affected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. So again, this is the point, is that, okay, you're no longer in this world doing your duties simply to get some result to enjoy. You do the same duty, but the fruit, you don't want to enjoy it. This is what it means by being detached. You get the fruit and you just offer it to Krishna. Whatever results we get in this world, you see it as an offering to Krishna, part of this ecosystem which traditionally was part of Varnashram society, where everyone was engaged in yajna. But there were those who were ignorant, who were doing their duty within the Varnashram system, but they had no idea that this was meant to be ultimately done as a sacrifice for Vishnu. They get allured by the fruits of their work, and they think this is the goal, is to enjoy. But Krishna is trying to bring these people to much higher platform. Do your duty, but don't realize that the fruit is not for you. It's actually meant to be offered in sacrifice. You're part of this whole system of sacrifice for Vishnu, as was revealed in the 3rd chapter, right? What is that verse? Yagya tarkamanonyatra lokoyam kamrabhandanaha. This is 3:9 in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna reveals this point that work has to be done for sacrifice for Vishnu. So this is the point. Do your duty, but now instead of doing it thinking that this result is what I get, because you will get a result. If you do something, some action in this world, there will be some fruit. But once you get the fruit, don't think, oh, this is for me to enjoy. Say, no, this is for Krishna. You work intelligently, apply maximum efforts to do your duty within, of course, Krishna is speaking within the Varnashram system. Not if you do some papam and you get some result and you're like, oh, there, this, I'm going to offer this sinful thing to Krishna. No, that is not exactly what Krishna is referring to, just to give proper context. But if you have some duty within a Vaishnava society, such as this will replace Varnashram duty. You can do some duty here. You may get so many results by working here. You may get, nice things, whatever, as a result of being part of the Sankirtan movement. But don't think that I'm doing this for my enjoyment. You think whatever the result is meant for Krishna's enjoyment. So I just want to make that point clear. And also we see this also very early in the Bhagavad Gita, a very nice verse which is often misquoted. Karmanyava adhikaraste matpalesh paleshu kadachana karma pala hetu bhur ma te sangasta karmani. This is Bhagavad Gita 2:47 for those who want to follow along. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty. This is on page 130. But you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. Sometimes people think we should not be attached to the result. Means we don't care what the result is. No. But the idea is that you do your duty nicely. There's another way of saying not doing your duty is also doing your duty in a lazy way. No, you do your duty nicely, but you offer the result for Krishna. You're concerned for what the end result is, especially when it comes to these duties that are directly related to Krishna's mission in this world. We should actually care for the result, because the result actually matters. Therefore, you see Srila Prabhupada asks some of his disciples, the managers especially, what is the result? Okay, any progress? Just like Maharaj, by his great blessing, always blesses me with this question. What is the result? What is any updates? Tell me. He wants to know. So the pressure is there to care about what's going on, so that we're not in the mode of ignorance, thinking, oh, I'm detached from the result. But this is not a high level of consciousness. We should actually care about the mission of the Lord, but whatever result is for His pleasure, and that has to be very clear. So, because we identify with this world as sense enjoyers of this world, therefore these verses are saying we have to recognize ultimately the whole system that's in place here is actually meant for sacrifice of Vishnu. The material nature is giving you all these facilities, these bodies, and she's fulfilling your desires to work. Either work for Krishna or work for Maya. You have some facility given. By the laws of nature, you're given according to your karma to be able to, let's say, I can speak for a certain amount of hours. Like right now, by my karma, I may be able to speak for a certain period of time. Material nature is granting me that right now as I'm speaking. But I can choose to speak nonsense, or I can speak about Krishna. That is my free will. But that's granted to me. And the nature is, okay, you have that karma. Tatascha, you can choose. You want to speak for Krishna or speak for nonsense? But if I speak for Krishna, then it goes above karma. Material nature might help me even beyond what my karma allows me to do. I can maybe speak endlessly for Krishna. And we see many exalted devotees, they're able to do so much more than what material nature would have granted them to do for their own sense enjoyment, But now they're able to do so much more for Krishna because they're very clear of the goal of life, and everything helps us when we serve Krishna, because that's the whole purpose of the existence. So we can continue reading. Let's see some of the purport. Brahmana here means in Krishna conscious. See, I love how Prabhupada makes it clear every step of the way. None of this vague nonsense. Brahmani means in Krishna consciousness. So it has to be in relation to the person, the Supreme Personality of God. We're always trying to take away from him. You know, Prabhupada got really angry to one time to one of his disciples early on in the movement because they somehow spoke a little bit of Mayavad nonsense still after him being so long. You know, he had a group of gathering of some people now after being in America for a year and no results. And after some time, he started getting a little traction, a little results, some followers there. And they spoke a little bit of Mayavad, you know, trying to take credit from Krishna, saying, yeah, I'll talk about this vague thing, but not speaking on the point of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God. So Prabhupada was getting into his transcendental anger, and he pounded his fist and declared that it's Krishna. We're speaking about Krishna here. The goal is Krishna. Why do you keep avoiding Krishna? You know? And you would have said, wow, he could have ruined the whole movement there. You know, because he just started getting a few followers, but Prabhupada didn't care about this. He wanted to make sure that people understood. He wasn't there for followers. He wanted to make sure he did the mission. The mission of the Lord is what he came here for. He didn't give up the spiritual world. Vrindavan Dham is not different from the spiritual world. Of course, from one perspective, he gave up the spiritual world when he was in the spiritual world, and also when he came here, and Krishna allowed him also to be in Vrindavan Dham. He left that also for the sake of the mission of the Lord to spread Vrindavan Dham all over the world. And he was not going to compromise and allow people to indulge in these vague ideas of what spirituality is. It's like spiritual. We always try to be spiritual without Krishna in the picture. He's a person. You cannot delete him in any regards. So we should always remember that. Self-realization always means with Krishna, and Krishna means with his devotees. So we need each other in this regard. We always need Krishna. We're insignificant. We're little jiva souls who are always dependent. The only person who's independent is God. He's swarat, self-satisfied. Only he. Everyone else is dependent, either on Krishna or Krishna's devotees. And this is the realization given by Krishna Das Kaviraj Bhajana Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says everyone is either a servant of Lord Chaitanya or a servant of the servant of the servant of Lord Chaitanya. Ultimately, this is what it is. So we should come to this understanding, or else it becomes this vague, impersonal thing where we think self-realization. When you think of yourself, you think of yourself without anything else, without Krishna, without his devotees. This is all ridiculous, actually. So that's one sentence. Let's continue reading. The material world is the sum total manifestation of the three modes of material nature, technically called the pradhan. The pradhan is unmanifested stage, and then when it manifests, that's the material nature. The Vedic hymn Sarvam etam brahman tasmat etam brahm nama rupam anam cha jayate. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Mama Yone Mahad Brahma, indicate that everything in the material world is a manifestation of Brahman. And although the effects are differently manifested, they are non-different from the cause. In the Ishopanishad, it is said that everything is related to the Supreme Brahman or Krishna, and thus everything belongs to him only. One who knows perfectly well that everything belongs to Krishna, that he is the proprietor of everything, and that therefore everything is engaged in the service of the Lord, naturally has nothing to do with the results of his activity, whether virtuous or sinful. Even one's material body being a gift of the Lord for carrying out a particular type of action can be engaged in Krishna consciousness. It is beyond contamination by sinful reactions, exactly as a lotus leaf, though remaining in the water, is not wet. So I want to clarify this point of whether virtuous or sinful. Okay, it seems Maharaj has a comment.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj has a comment on Bhagavad Gita chapter 5, text 17. When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation.
The beauty of transcendental knowledge from Krishna is that it's so inclusive that one understands simultaneously inconceivable oneness with Krishna. Krishna is one with everything, but at the same time, he's different from everything. And Brahman is the impersonal feature of the Lord, at least it's his avyakta murti, his unmanifest form, which is pretty hard to imagine that, but it's such a perfect expression, avyakta murti, unmanifest form. And then he has his personal form, which is supreme. And when someone tries to look at the absolute truth in these three ways, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, is perfect. It makes total sense. It's completely inclusive, and then one can see all different aspects of religion or spiritual efforts that people are trying to make. You can see them in the proper perspective. Yes, this person is striving to get a little knowledge about the impersonal energies of the Lord. That's good. I mean, he's working towards the Brahman platform. But then higher than that is Paramatma and ultimately Krishna, Bhagavan. So this is why this knowledge has to be learned. Without it, one can't really understand what's going on in the material world, what to speak of the spiritual world. Thank you.
John, did everyone get to hear that? A little bit. So Maharaj was saying that knowledge in this verse is referring to Krishna in all his aspects, is the impersonal Brahman effulgence, which is his avyakta murti, and the super soul feature of the Lord. So when one goes to Krishna and gets this knowledge, he can see everything means all aspects of Krishna, which includes these different features of the absolute truth. And as is in the purport, Gurmara didn't say this, I'm adding this now. As in the purport that we just read, Prabhupada makes the point that from this impersonal comes this pradhan and comes these material modes of material nature. So this is the perfection of coming to Krishna consciousness, is that you get full knowledge of the absolute truth in all his features. And therefore, as Maharaj was saying, he said you can appreciate different people where they're at. And they can make progress from that point on, actually, if we preach to them properly and explain things properly. Of course, if they're envious and they're puffed up, then it's impossible to preach to anybody, to give people knowledge who are not willing to hear, who are not interested. But we should make it clear, we should spell it out, where the source of everything is coming from is ultimately Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Or else people will be stuck, where they're at. And generally, in Kali Yuga, people become offensive when they're stuck in a certain platform at some point. And that's what keeps them there on that platform, actually. So let's continue reading. We'll just read the verses now. The yogis abandoning attachment act with body, mind, intelligence. This is text 11. And even with the senses only for the purpose of purification. So, because you're no longer using these things, such as the body, mind, intelligence, like an ordinary person, then who simply uses those things for his own benefit, then you're not going to get any reaction because you're using it for Krishna's service. for the mission of the Lord, for pleasing Krishna, for assisting the mission of the Lord, which is a glorious mission. The Lord wants to save all the fallen conditioned souls from suffering in this material world. And therefore, the best welfare for every single living entity. So if you actually have this vision, as Maharaj pointed out, is Vidya Abhinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavi Haste Shuni Chaiva Swapakecha Pandita Samadharshana. If you actually see with this transcendental knowledge that there's a living entity in every living entity's heart, whether he be a learned Brahmana who's so great and praised in society, a cow, an elephant, or a dog eater who's considered an outcast in society, you'll try to help every single one of them, because every single one of them is a part and parcel of Krishna, and they need Krishna. Devotional service is the need of the soul. Without Krishna, we cannot be actually fully satisfied, no matter what we do. Without devotee association, spiritual life is just a hallucination. Just imagining you're spiritual. Without genuine relationships, who are worshiping God, then you're just imagining that you're spiritual. So a devotee befriends these fallen conditioned souls and tries to help them in their relationship with Krishna. And your relationship is a service to them. You become their servant, seeing how I can help this person, not how I can exploit this person, which is our experience of every relationship in this material world. Therefore, we can't actually learn from this experience, because if we try to apply this, our experience in this world is just of exploiting people, either subtly or grossly. So if we try to apply those principles to spiritual life, it'll be a disaster. So better we learn from Krishna how to have a real relationship. And Krishna expects unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service rendered unto him. It's unmixed service. We serve Krishna with no expectation, not that I get something out of this relationship. No, even if I get nothing, I'm their servant to help them in their relationship with God. Therefore, the devotee is self-satisfied in this way because he doesn't want anything else from anybody. He's not interested in exploiting such persons. He just wants to see them satisfied in their relationship with Krishna and the devotees. So what can he want from them? He's only there to give. So his heart is full of so much joy. Because a heart that's exploiting others can only feel disturbance. Our mind will simply be disturbed the moment we think of some conception of exploiting someone else. Yeah, we become very disturbed. At least if we're somewhat on the path of spirituality, we'll become disturbed. But those who are okay with it, that's a bad sign. If you're okay with thinking of exploiting someone or something, and you're okay with it, that's a really bad sign of a diseased person who's okay with selfish desires in his heart and his mind. So we should check where we're at and see how we react to these things, to these ideas that come across our minds. And we should try to rectify. We should repent. We should pray to Krishna. We should take help from the spiritual master, from the devotees, and pray to the spiritual master, because ultimately is the spiritual master mercy we can get this proper attitude in devotional service. He trains us and molds our attitude of unmotivated, uninterrupted, pure devotional service. He's the manifestation of Lord Balaram, who is the incarnation of Servitor, the Servitor Godhead. He's an expansion of Krishna meant for service. So every person who comes after him expands from Lord Balaram is meant to be a servant of Krishna. So when we become in touch with that reality, we'll feel unlimitedly satisfied, actually, even without looking for it. So this is the gift of Krishna consciousness which we have to give to everybody. Let's continue reading. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the results of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, right? Divine means Krishna, right? What does I know when I first read this, divine, it's like it's like your imagination can go wild, because we have our experience of divine in this world. We call so many things divine, but divine truly can only be applied to Krishna. So when the devotee hears divine, he doesn't think something else. He thinks Krishna. Just like when Dori hears Brahman, he thinks Krishna, because Krishna is the source of Brahman. He's the Param Brahma. But because we don't understand this language, we tend to imagine what these things mean. We add our own definition. So therefore we require purports. Who is greedy for the fruits of his labor becomes entangled. So Prabhupada clearly spells it out. All that exists is a product of Krishna's energy. And Krishna is all good. Therefore, activities in Krishna consciousness are on the absolute plane. They are transcendental and have no material effect. So we cannot do anything else and think that it's going to be without any effect. Unless we're working for Krishna, living in this world, in whatever social system there is, even though this compromised social system is not the best, still, if we start adding Krishna, we can purify our situation by just simply offering the fruits to Krishna, using it in his mission. This is the concession made in Kali Yuga. That even those who are in a compromised social system and working in some compromised job with so many sinful activities are going on, sinful boss, if they simply attach themselves to the mission of the Lord, they can also become purified. Of course, there's always impediments in that situation. It's not the most favorable. It's better if we adopt Krishna's social system. And therefore, our acharyas wanted us to establish Varnashram Dharma within society. I was just hearing a lecture. Prabhupada said the leaders, he was speaking to his leaders in the society. He said they should care about the social system in society, actually. And we should do this Varnashram system. Because people, by not following this, are becoming, impeded by their sinful ways. Because outside of Varnashram, there's so many sinful activities done, where people are engaged in what's this sinful activity? What's the difference between that and pious activity? It's just unregulated sense gratification. Pious activity is still sense gratification, so it's still somewhat sinful actually, but it's regulated. Because real purity is no sense gratification, all 100% for Krishna. But at least in Varnashram system is regulated sense gratification. Okay, you have to be in this world, you have sense desires, what can you do? At least regulate it. You can't give it up completely immediately. It's impossible for a conditioned soul to do that, generally speaking, unless he gets some super mercy from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He just gives up all tendencies to enjoy all sense gratification and desires. But regulate it in such a way that is according to the scriptures. We organize society according to Krishna's way, not our own way. So then we can properly, more favorably engage in Krishna consciousness. So let's continue reading. When the embodied living being completely controls his nature and mentality, renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Because again, this is done, whatever work he's doing, right? The previous verse said he's aloof. Aloof means the living entity doesn't have the power to engage with the material energy. He has nothing to do with this material energy. He's being facilitated by Maya, by Krishna's directing. Krishna is in the heart of every living entity. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hidesh Arjuna Tishtati. He's guiding the wanderings of every living entity who are sitting on this body like a machine and telling material nature, okay, yes, you allow this person. He wants to enjoy like this. You allow this person. You give him facilities for this. So material nature doesn't. So when one can control his nature means he uses his nature in Krishna's service. This is real control, not artificial control, but using whatever qualities or gifts given by Krishna for Krishna's service. And mentally renouncing all actions. What does this mean? All the results of the fruits is given for Krishna. Therefore, then we can be happy despite being in this body, because we're attached to the service of the Lord, because we're working for Krishna. So despite it's not so comfortable, because we get the opportunity to do some service, we're satisfied. And therefore, we're no longer the doer, because our actions are no longer impelled by our own whimsical ideas how to act. but they're impelled by Krishna's desires. That's what it means to be attached to the mission of the Lord. We fulfill the desires of the Lord. We fulfill His will in this world, whether socially or whatever way. Every regard, we should try to fulfill the will of the Lord. This is what the topmost devotees are doing in the spiritual world. Their bodies are completely made of just giving pleasure to Krishna, every inch of their body. Their beauty is just beauty only for the sake of giving Krishna pleasure and satisfaction. So similarly, we can follow that mood in the same way by just, even everything we do, whatever it is, we want to do it according to God's will. However, even how we dress, how we look, how we keep our hair, all these things are all delineated and spoken in the scripture, so we can follow. We can do those things in the mood of service, not as a ritual or some cultural thing or something that, or think it's from India or something. No, it's revealed by Krishna, revealed through tradition. We can follow, and we can do it in the mood of service, do it to Krishna because it's pleasing to Him. It's revealed by Him. Why do something else that's whimsical according to this world? Why walk and dress like the people who hate Krishna, who design everything so you can exploit, to enhance people's desire to exploit? It's like some people dress and come to the temple and it's just invoking all these, lusty desires in the mind of people. Sometimes you wear these karmic clothes and immediately you feel it. I put these pants on and I'm just like, you feel it. It's a different consciousness. It was designed for sense gratification. It was made to heighten our lusty desires to exploit each other and exploit this world. Versus in Vedic culture, everything was done the opposite, to regulate, to keep things at bay so that people can focus on the ultimate goal of life. Therefore, we have all these different apparent rules. I say apparent because they're not really rules that bind us or restrict us, but they give us real freedom to actually focus and love Krishna and develop our relationship with Him. So the embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. Again, material nature is arranging all these different things. So we have to see this properly. And therefore, let's continue reading. Nor does the Supreme Spirit assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of ignorance which covers their real knowledge. So here is making it clear, because we might think, okay, I'm not doing, so because we might think since I'm not doing it, somebody else's fault, right? That's the implication that may happen. But here, Krishna's making it clear, no, the Supreme Spirit is not the one assuming your sinful or pious activities. You're the one who desires those things, therefore material nature fulfills them. Who gives you the ability to do that, fulfills those desires. Just like right now, I can choose to move my hand and use it in whatever way I want. I can use it for something sinful, or I can use it for Krishna. I can use my voice, whatever material nature is going to supply indifferently, however I want to use. You want to use it for something sinful or something pious. You have that karma to be able to work. So it's up to you. You desire to do it, Krishna, okay, here you go. But, so you cannot blame the Supreme Lord. Although you're not the one directly doing, because you're dependent on material nature to fulfill this. All the demigods they're working on behalf of nature. They're not spaced out. They know exactly what you need. Exactly how much you're allowed to act and not act. Just like the sun has a certain karma. It can only act a certain move in a certain sphere. If it comes too close, material nature will not allow. It cannot move beyond its jurisdiction, or else, the whole world will become burnt to ashes or freeze to death if it moves away too far. But the sun god is a devotee, so he won't compromise in this regard. He uses his free will properly to perform yajna in the form of facilitating yajna in so many different ways. So however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nations is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. I always give this point that knowledge is just the beginning. Once the lights are on, then you can see and you can properly act in life, right? If it was completely pitch dark, we wouldn't be able to see ourselves or our hands or anything. How do you even live, So how do you live in ignorance? How do you live without knowing the absolute truth, how this world is governed, about God, about his laws who are there to help you and benefit you, and how you're entangled if you just act whimsically, you just go degraded into the lower species of life. How do you even begin to live like this? Next life, for sure, most people are going to go into animal life. Unless the devotee comes and somehow they hear the holy name, or they get Srila Prabhupada's books, or they get some knowledge of the truth. So, but it's just the beginning. Once we know, we have to start acting. We have to live according to these principles. And then it becomes more and more fixed in our consciousness. And we realize, wow, this is reality actually. So when one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, and one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. It becomes very easy once you know the truth. No more fear. Fear is due to the unknown. What happens after death? We don't know. What happens if I do this? I don't know. If I go down this path, will this happen or that happen? We know. It's all clearly delineated. If you don't serve Krishna, we know exactly what happens. We don't obey the laws of God in this world, then we know. Yashastra vidim vartate kamakaratha nasasiddhimavapnoti nasukam na param gatim. You don't get no happiness at all by living a whimsical life. You're going to go to animal life, because that's what animals do. They have no consciousness of others. They just see everything as an object of their sense gratification. So they live a life of fearing. So if that's what you want, then you can do that. Material nature will reward you. Will give you a body suited for that. Where you can't discriminate. You can't see right from wrong. So we'll stop there. We already read text 18. Any questions or comments? Quick. Yes, Krishna Shravanam Prabhu. You can repeat. I can repeat it. You can just tell me. I'll repeat it on the mic. Text 9. Okay. Jai. So this was a comment by Krishna Shravanam Prabhu. He was speaking in regards to text 9. He said, if someone at court says that I'm not guilty, I didn't do any of these things, such as commit some crimes or whatever, because I'm not the doer. It's just the senses engaging with the sense objects. There are 5 other factors besides me. Of course, we know that one of the factors is actually the living entity in there, in those 5 factors. So still, he's a rascal, because he doesn't know, as Krishna Shravan is pointing out, that his actions have to be guided by Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So this is the point, that divine consciousness means acting according to Krishna's will, which is revealed in Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And therefore, aloof has double meaning, as Krishna Shravanam pointed out indirectly, is that one gets no reaction also for his actions. Also, aloof means you recognize that it's being done by material nature as well, because you have that proper knowledge. The material nature is the one who's facilitating these actions. Okay, so any last comments or questions? Okay, Gio. There's a question? All right. You offer it to Guru, and he'll do the rest. You get some fruit, whatever it is, and you use it for Krishna's pleasure by engaging it under the direction of the spiritual master, whatever it is. Okay? Even if you get something that you're averse to, some position or some fame, respect, you have to use it. Krishna's service somehow under the direction of the spiritual master. Even if it's unwanted, for a devotee normally doesn't want to be in position. The spiritual master may say you take that position and you run with it and you use it in Krishna's service. Okay, we can talk about it after. All right, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishya